Today I thought our homily could be a little bit different than normal. Normally I can get fairly theological, but today I thought we would talk about something practical and puppies. We'll start with the puppies. I remember a few years ago, I don't exactly remember where it was, but I'll never forget this puppy. It was just this chubby little ball of fur with big bright eyes and the tongue kind of hanging out, and it waddled up to me, plopped down at my feet, rolled over on its back with little paws up in the air, and looked at me with great anticipation, and of course, I did what it wanted and I scratched its belly. And while that was probably one of the cutest things I've experienced in a very long time, it's also really meaningful. Because there's something about body language when an animal, or even we humans sometimes do this, when you expose the most vulnerable part of your body, the soft front, your belly, that's a sign of trust, submission, and confidence. The puppy felt safe to expose, in body language, to expose its most vulnerable part of the body. And I propose to you this morning that puppy can teach us great wisdom, practically speaking, about the virtue of humility and the struggle against pride. Because while it's a delightful and cute image, there's a deep truth at work here. And that is the terror and the anxiety of being vulnerable. We humans are far more complicated in our emotional life and certainly in our spiritual life than animals. But we struggle with the same thing. We have the exact same reality of whether or not we're going to make ourselves vulnerable or show up into the world from a place of vulnerability. This is the practical side of the homily. Because the reality is, no matter how much we want to pretend, and fellas, it's really, really a burden placed upon us, because as we grew up, and you are experiencing, we have never been given the fluency or the vocabulary to wrestle with our inner emotional life. We have absolutely been poorly served by our culture to know or understand what it's like to wrestle with our vulnerability, our sense of inadequacy, or our deep hidden insecurities. Ladies, you wrestle with this as well. I'm not going to pretend to know what it's like being you, but I know we all struggle with this. It's a common thing. And when I say all, I'm in the bunch too. And here's the practical wisdom. We all struggle with deep insecurities, anxiety, fear of vulnerability, and a sense of inadequacy. I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, that, or the other. And here's what happens. If we feel weak, it's really tempting to overcompensate and to act like we're really tough and strong. If we feel like we're not enough, it's really tempting to act as if we're fantastic and we're really great and we're really important. You see, there's this temptation to overcompensate for whatever our insecurities, our vulnerabilities, or our sense of inadequacy is. It's really easy to go the opposite way, overcompensate, and that always looks like pride. I have never met anybody in my experience of life and in my ministry who, as they wrestle with the the sin of pride, it's actually not also an overcompensation for their sense of vulnerability. Pride is almost always compensation or covering over our hope that no one notices that we too wrestle with a sense of weakness or insecurity or inadequacy. Pride is pretending that we're not human. And when the sense of vulnerability and inadequacy is really deep, or someone is struggling with great brokenness, how much more, how much greater is that awful experience of the arrogance and the ego and the pride. Show me someone who is incredibly arrogant, and I will show you someone who is deeply wounded. It's a guarantee. I've seen it over and over. And I'm sorry to say, I've seen it in the mirror. Now, the opposite of pride is humility. One of the absolute greatest virtues. The virtue upon which all other virtues are built. And the heart of humility is pretty simple. Honesty. The courage to be honest with ourselves and to try to do that exploration, the spiritual exploration, the emotional exploration of getting in touch with what are my insecurities? How do I feel vulnerable? When and how do I feel inadequate? And if we can wrestle with that, if we have the courage to go there in our own lives, to really wrestle with and get a sense of, and they're never perfectly healed. I've been at this for most of my life, and I'm still wrestling with it. But what happens when we can come to terms with our own sense of inadequacy, our own fear of insecurity, our own vulnerabilities, when we can get some sense of that, then that anxiety, that deep down darkness, it doesn't control us anymore, or it doesn't have to. We don't have to compensate anymore. Think about that parable, right? Who among us hasn't gone into an awkward social situation? We do it all the time. I mean, goodness gracious, those of you who are first-year students, I'm sorry, like your entire last week was one nonstop awkward social situation. Every situation that you walked into was like the parable that Jesus told of, oh golly, where do I sit? Right, I'm going into a new classroom. The dining hall. I've never been in this dining hall before. Where do I sit? With whom do I sit? Right, this is everyday stuff. It's as close to our experience as anything. And so if we could somehow just have an understanding of our insecurities, our vulnerabilities, our sense of insufficiency, if we can just know it, it doesn't have to control us, and we then could behave differently. Self-knowledge is the root of humility. The truth, knowing the truth about ourselves, not having it perfected, just knowing it. Knowing the truth about ourselves and our own darkness, that's the root of humility. It's scary. It takes a lot of courage. But it's not that complicated. That's what humility really is. Knowing ourselves, knowing our own brokenness, knowing our own darkness, knowing our own weakness, not necessarily having it fixed, but at least knowing it well enough so that it doesn't have the power to control us. And then you don't have to overcompensate with arrogance or ego or pride. Then, knowing ourselves, we're free to not be tugged by all of those emotional urges that want to protect us. We can walk into that awkward social situation that we all know so well and just say, yeah, I'm not the most important person here. Okay, I'll go sit over there. The food's the same at that end of the table as it is at that end of the table. So what? Oh, I'm sorry, I sat in the wrong place. Oh, thank you, host. All right, yeah. Right? Can you imagine the liberation, the freedom, and the joy that comes with the journey of self-knowledge, that very quickly becomes the virtue of humility.